Hello everybody, this is Fernando for Godzilla Movie News. Thought I would make yet another entry in my Cryptids and Monsters YouTube channel. This time on a fan favorite that some of y'all have been asking for me for a while now, so I thought I would make this video for y'all out there. And regarding the subject, it's actually something that you could consider to be one of the top dogs, no pun intended, when it comes to the cryptid world. Like if you were to have a list of all-stars when it comes to the cryptids out there, the Chupacabra absolutely ranks up there in terms of all-stars. I mean, it's in the same league as, say, the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or any of the other all-stars that are out there in terms of recognition and in terms of all these sightings and people becoming aware of it. So mention the name Chupacabra anywhere in the US and chances are people will have heard of the cryptid, and not only have heard of it, but they know probably of somebody that has seen it as well. I even have my own story that I'll explain just in a little bit from a relative. So in any case, I just wanted to go ahead and we'll start the video. With regards to the Chupacabra, essentially in Spanish it is a literal translation of a goat sucker. And the reason why it got this name was because apparently its first attacks were somewhere in Puerto Rico back in the mid-90s. And what had happened was 8 sheep were discovered dead, and all of them had 3 puncture wounds, essentially in the chest area, and most noticeably they were all completely drained of blood. And what's unique about this is there were no lacerations, there were no mutilations, there weren't missing parts. Essentially the creature was just completely drained of blood, all of them. And apparently this attack continued later on in another town within Puerto Rico, where more than 150 animals, farm animals essentially, were killed. And this also continued with another small town in Mocha, and apparently Puerto Rico seems to have a huge portion of these stories on there. I mean, we're talking that animal deaths apparently have been discovered in a lot of Southern American countries, such as Chile, Colombia, El Salvador, Panama, Peru, and of course here, going a little bit north in the United States. Now, that's why the term Chupacabra or goat sucker comes about, because each of these animal slayings essentially follow the same pattern. The blood has been drained. Nothing else is missing. Nothing else that you would normally picture. Like if a wolf was, say, chewing on a rabbit, of course the wolf would devour the whole thing, or it would ensure that the actual parts were missing left and right. But in this case, all of the pets, all of the animals, everything was essentially where they're essentially drained on all of their blood. They didn't have any of the other indications of a normal animal attack. Now, there have been various sightings with regards to this Chupacabra, and I'll show you pictures here of where people have reported to claim. You'll see this one. This is actually one of the most famous images of the Chupacabra. It's supposedly a still image from a film capture of the Chupacabra. I think it's a little too suspicious, because it looks like this creature is supposed to be in motion, and yet this particular capture perfectly captures it in still motion. There's not a single resemblance of motion within the film. And what I mean is, like, if you film something coming at you, you're supposed to see some blur within the film, because unless you're running at thousands and thousands of frames a second, then you're not going to be able to capture such perfect still clarity a picture like this. But who knows? Apparently this is one of the most famous pictures that are out there, so we'll see. This other one here is another famous picture. It actually comes, and I saw this with I believe it was a Discovery Channel that was focusing on the Chupacabra. This is purportedly a baby Chupacabra that was caught and died, and that was by this Dr. Zeke, I believe he goes by the name there. And he has taken multiple pictures and shown it to multiple universities and investigators, and they have analyzed it. I believe the Discovery Channel even had one of the researchers, they clipped part of the toe and they were able to take it for analyzation, and they came up with, I think if I remember correctly, it was a pre-existing animal, and they got their suspicions that this thing was essentially I guess manufactured after death. Like, in other words, parts were added on. It does look just a little vaguely fake. I would have to take a closer look, of course, at the horns particularly to see. But in any case, let's talk about a quick minute here again about the Chupacabra itself. The similar pattern that a lot of people have is that it follows a specific design. You'll have the monster itself, or the cryptid in this case, always be short and squatty and stocky. It's never larger than, say, about 3 feet or so. It's always the size of, say, like a small to mid-sized dog. Nothing larger, nothing shorter. And it does have spikes running towards the top of its head, towards the back, kind of like Godzilla, actually, when it comes to the resemblance. The creature also is very lizardy. It has, to a certain extent, I guess as brief as these sightings are, no fur of any kind. It has a very lizardy, scaly type of appearance, but the most distinctive, absolute distinctive feature that the creature has are its bloodshot red eyes. Multiple reports, multiple ones from witnesses have always claimed that there are the red eyes that stand out the most. And the way the creature moves, it's been reported to be running very quickly, almost too quickly. It's very hard to catch up, apparently. And also that it jumps. It uses its powerful legs to jump left and right, and jump great distances, and escape with relative ease. So that's the main, resemblance or traits that a lot of the sightings tend to focus on. Whether or not, the sightings are indeed Chupacabra, it's hard to tell. With so many people in the countries watching and seeing this thing, I'm surprised that there aren't more actual images of the Chupacabra, but we'll see. Now, one of the most famous sightings of the Chupacabra is actually a more recent one. It was back in, it looks like about 2004. In the 2000 era. We're talking in Texas. It looked like a person, a police officer, was actually driving down a rural road, and he saw this weird creature jogging ahead of him. And the officer turned on the video cam that he had inside his car, and he captured this creature for a long few minutes. And the creature kept turning its head sideways as if glancing at the officer, and then eventually just ran away. It was not captured, if I'm not mistaken. And what made people wonder, is this an actual image of the Chupacabra, is the fact that it had a very elongated head compared to the body itself. And there wasn't any spikes, though, on the creature, but it nonetheless revived the notion that we have the Chupacabra image, or the creature captured on image. With regards to the Chupacabra also, it stands out as one of the all-stars because, again, so many sightings that have happened have followed the same trait. Now, if there was multiple sightings, but let's say people were, there were very large variances between what people saw, then that would add a bit of vagueness to the creature. But the fact that so many people keep reporting the same thing, it's very, very, it's too much of a coincidence, in other words. And you'll see this other picture here, that apparently an elderly couple, if I remember correctly, because this was also on the Discovery show, they found this creature already dead. And you'll see it here. And what had happened was the creature was found, and they cut off the head to take it for inspection, and it turned out to be just a rural dog. But again, it set about the notion that the Chupacabra lives, and people were talking about that it still is the Chupacabra itself. Now, with regards to all these sightings, the main conclusion that I can come up with, I'd like to believe that something like this truly is out there, but the main conclusion that I can come up with is most of these sightings are either, I hate to say it, but they're kind of fake, especially with some of the pictures that I showed you a little earlier, but also they could easily be mistaken just for rural wild dogs. especially dogs that fall under a specific category, those that have rabid mange covering their entire body. For those of you that don't know what mange is, it's a form of like a parasitic disease. It's caused by little microscopic parasites of some sort that when they latch onto the dogs, they essentially sap the blood, but when they do that, it causes the furs to completely drop off and it gets you that scaly look. Poor dogs that are out there that are completely wild, completely feral, they have notorious cases of mange on them, and you'll see some pictures of it here. And because of that, you'll notice that it does look similarly to what essentially some of the past pictures look like, the ones that I showed you of the reported Chupacabra. And because of this mange, again, something out in the wild, especially if it's at night, it's very easy to mistake a creature like this. One will normally see a dog with a lot of hair, but now they see something quite hairless and lizardy looking as a cryptid. Also, with regards to the red eyes, I think that could very easily be explained because of the fact that dogs, like cats, they have larger eyes that refract more light than, say, humans. And when that happens and you just happen to catch them at the right angle, especially if you shine a light towards them, it'll create that eerie light effect on their eyes, like it's beaming something back, either a white or reddish light. A common feature is, again, if you've ever taken pictures of your friends and the eyes happen to look at the camera at a certain way, it'll come back with those red pupils, same effect. And that's what I think happens in a lot of cases. The people that see these sightings, they see a creature, the creature looks at them, and it happens to create that side effect of the light catching it just at the right moment, and it creates those reddish pupils. So now, as far as my own story, this comes actually from my grandfather that lived in Mexico. He's dead now, but at the time, he had told me a story that one night he was just hanging out outside the house, and when he was out there, he had some beer in his hand, so I think that's what made up a lot of his story, but he absolutely swears he saw the Chupacabra. If you've ever been to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, you know that the towns there are a little shanty. A lot of places are very poor, very rural, and in this case he lived in a part of the town that it was populated and it had a lot of shanty houses, but there was a lot of wide open areas as well. And there he was, he said, leaning against the car, just drinking a beer, and this was at nighttime. Then he saw something on the far side of the street dart across the street very quickly, and he turned and looked, but it was already gone. And so when he turned and just kept looking, the thing darted back, but this time it glanced towards him, and that's when he saw what he believes was a Chupacabra, because he swears he saw spikes on top of the thing, and he saw those reddish eyes. And after that thing darted the second time, then that was it. He just went inside, and he didn't see anything else because he didn't want to stay out there any longer. So, but that's my story. That's the one that I have. So if anybody knows any other stories out there, I'm sure everybody has somebody, a friend, family member, coworker, with this type of all-star cryptid. That there has to be somebody that somebody knows, that people have that had seen this thing. Then post your comments below. Let everybody know. But in any case, with regards again to its all-star status, so huge has the Chupacabra become that it's actually crossed over into mainstream, and fans of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards, there's actually a card listed with the Chupacabra itself as apparently one of the playable characters. So I thought that was a little unique on there. You don't really see that with some of the other cryptids. And also, when it comes to Chupacabra, it's also come across several films. According to Wikipedia, there was a Scooby-Doo film that featured the Chupacabra on there. And when it comes to the comics, also, it looks like the Fantastic Four, back in one of the issues in 2007, also faced off against a group of Chupacabras. I also thought it was kind of interesting. I think the Chupacabra actually inspired one of the creatures within the Half-Life game, Opposing Force. You'll see a picture over here. I can't quite remember what the creature is called, but it has the reddish eyes, it has the spikes on the back. It has the short, squatty feature with the same type of legs. The only difference is the arms and that it's standing up